All right, welcome back. Today, we're tackling a really powerful idea, a core rule for life, really. Tell the truth, or, at the bare minimum, don't lie. And we're going to dig into why this is so much more than just a moral guideline. It's actually about the very fabric of your reality.
So right off the bat, the source material hits us with this. Think about it, lying versus telling the truth. It's not just like picking option A or option B. The argument here is that they are two totally different universes you can live in. One is the easy path, sure, but it's built on illusions. The other, it's tough, but it's built on solid ground. They're, like the quote says, utterly different ways of existing.
Okay, so before we can really champion the truth, we kind of have to be honest with ourselves, right? Why do we lie in the first place? What's the payoff? What are we actually trying to do when we bend the truth?
When you boil it down, it's pretty simple. It's about control. It's about trying to manipulate the world to get what we want. We use words to, climb the ladder, win an argument we probably should have lost, make ourselves look better than we are. It feels like a shortcut, a tool to get ahead. But, and this is a big but, there's always a price to pay for that kind of manipulation.
Now, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. The author shares a really personal story, a moment of crisis that led to a major realization about all this.
Wow. Just read that for a second. I was a fake. That is an incredibly tough thing to admit to yourself. He talks about how he basically split himself in two, the part that was talking and the part that was watching and judging. And the verdict was brutal. It wasn't about these giant soap opera lies. No, it was about all the little everyday untruths we tell to smooth things over and get by. And coming to terms with that led him to a whole new rule for living.
And this was it. This became his North Star. I mean, think about it. When you're totally lost, when you have no clue what the next step is, what do? The answer he landed on was simple. Tell the truth. Stop trying to game out all the possibilities and just say what's real.
Okay, so that sounds good in theory, right? Tell the truth. But does it actually work when things get messy? Well, the source material gives us three, let's just say incredibly high-stakes examples where a little white lie would have been the easy way out.
So first up, the patient. Picture this. You're in a mental hospital, and a very fragile patient with schizophrenia comes up to you and your friends. She asks, almost like a little kid, if she can join your group. It's just a super awkward, socially complicated, and honestly, a pretty heartbreaking situation.
Next, we have the paranoid. This is a client in therapy who is not just paranoid, but potentially dangerous. This is a guy who's basically a human lie detector. He's looking for any tiny sign that you're not being straight with him, and he sees conspiracies everywhere.
And for the grand finale, the landlord. This sounds like it's straight out of a Tarantino movie. It's 2 a.m, and your landlord, who happens to be a former biker gang president with a history of violence, is drunk and banging on your door. He wants to sell you his toaster. Yeah, for real.
So how did it all play out? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. In every single one of these pressure cooker situations, telling the truth actually worked. The patient was sad, but she accepted it. The paranoid client, against all odds, started to build trust. And the scary landlord? The situation was totally de-escalated. It turns out that the hard truth, when delivered carefully, was way more effective than any easy lie would have been.
So lying to other people is one thing, but now we're going to go deeper into something way more dangerous, the lies we tell ourselves. The kind of lie that you can build your entire life on.
There's actually a term for this, the life lie, coined by the psychologist Alfred Adler. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when you pick a single, narrow goal for your life, and then you basically twist reality to make sure everything serves that one goal. You ignore anything and everything that contradicts it. It's like you're trying to force life to give you one specific outcome and only that outcome.
And here's some classic examples of what a life lie can be built on. Things like, I have to appear competent at all times, or I need everyone to like me, or I must avoid conflict no matter what. See, these stop being just desires and they become ironclad rules. And they totally warp how you see the world and how you act in it. This quote just nails it. That vision of retirement on a beach with a margarita, it's not a real plan. It's a fuzzy picture, a travel poster, and that can become a life lie. You could spend 30 or 40 years of your life working towards some fantasy you cooked up as a teenager, never once stopping to ask, hey, is this still what I actually want? You're sacrificing your real life for a blurry, out-of-date dream.
Okay, so there are the big life lies, but there's another, quieter kind of dishonesty that's just as damaging. It's the sin of omission. It's not about what you say, it's about what you don't say to avoid a fight or an awkward moment.
And here's how that poison works. It starts small. You say yes when you really mean no. Then you do it again, and before you know it, you've transformed yourself into someone who can't say no. You've built a weak character. So when a real storm comes, and trust me, it always does, you just get flattened. There's nothing there to stand up to it.
The price you pay for this is huge. If you won't reveal who you really are to other people, you can't even reveal yourself to yourself. But get this, it's not just a fuzzy psychological idea. It's actual biology. The source makes this incredible point that facing challenges literally switches on new genes in your brain, building new parts of you. So by always avoiding conflict and hiding, you're not just emotionally stunted, you're physically incomplete.
So, okay, we see how this can mess up an individual. But let's zoom out. What happens when this isn't just one person's problem? What happens when an entire culture, an entire society, starts playing fast and loose with the truth?
And the argument we're about to get into is, well, it's pretty chilling. The idea is that there's a direct, unbroken line from those little personal acts of dishonesty we all do, straight to the absolute worst horrors of modern history.
Right. Take Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He survived the Soviet gulags, and his conclusion was absolutely damning. He said the whole brutal system wasn't just held up by a few evil leaders. No, it was supported by millions of regular people who just went along with the lie. Every day, they pretended things were fine when they were not. It was the crushing weight of all those tiny individual lies that made the whole monstrous machine possible.
And Solzhenitsyn wasn't some lone voice crying in the wilderness. So many of the great thinkers who looked at human suffering, Viktor Frankl in the Nazi camps, Freud and Jung with their patients, they all landed on the same fundamental truth. Lies don't just make you feel bad. They twist the very fabric of reality. They make people sick, and they make societies sick. They pave the road to hell.
Which brings us right back to where we started. It's a choice. It's a fork in the road inside your own head. There are basically two voices, two ways you can respond when life doesn't go your way.
And here they are, laid out. On one side, you have the voice of authenticity. It says, okay, that didn't work. What did I do wrong? What can I learn? It treats failure like data. On the other side, you have the voice of inauthenticity. It says, the world's against me. People are idiots. It's someone else's fault. That second path, it's a dead end that leads straight to resentment and a whole lot of misery.
And maybe this is the most important takeaway of all. Look, life is hard. There's tragedy and suffering baked into the cake. That's just a given. But it's the lies we tell that take that tragedy and turn it into an actual hell. The truth, as hard as it can be, is what builds the strength, the character. You need to face that suffering head on and endure it.
So, where does that leave us? Well, with a very practical question. Forget about truth with a capital T for a second. Think about your life, right now. What's that one small, uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding? That conversation you keep putting off? That little lie you keep telling yourself? What is it? And what would happen if you decided to start telling that truth today?